What's up, everybody? This is Tasteless here with Gemini. We are casting a match between Parting versus Coffee here. This is in the Devastator build of Stormgate. Elephant build is just around the corner. If you like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. I'm going to be making a lot more content like this. Gameplay, casts, guides, all that stuff. So please stick with me as we make more content like this in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be a great match here. We've got Broken Crown Hinterlands as the first map here. Parting playing Infernals on the bottom left, and then Coffee playing the Vanguard on the top right. And so, yeah, we're excited to see what kind of stuff is coming out from these pro players in the Stormgate build, the Devastator build. And, yeah, I'm just curious what they've been going for, because these pros have not really been seen that much for this build.
I've got to the opportunity to play a couple of these guys, and it's kind of crazy how quickly people have picked up on the ideas that can come in the game. So it's going to be very cool to see what these two try to do against each other. As we're getting to the very early development of the meta here, we can see, in this case, we have our Infernal player going for a fast expand. There is the Scout right now. That's a small dog running around the map to check and basically see what's going to be going on here. And it's going to be a bit of a mirrored concept over here on the other side with fast expand here from Vanguard.
Yeah, basically the early expand builds have been pretty popular in Stormgate so far. The way that the game is developed, it's designed to make it so that way early cheese rushes are not that prevalent overall. And there's some general early game defensive mechanisms that you can use to help defend against those kinds of things. So a lot of builds will kind of have just a normal fast expand example here with maybe just a little bit of light pressure. Like, for example, we have Parting going for an early brute harass with that, and as you can see there, that little charging thing over top of those bobs right there is actually the overcharge, where it gives them a bunch of extra armor, so that way it's much easier to defend against anything coming across at them.
It's comparable to like the militia ability in Warcraft 3. Baiting that out and then maybe coming into attack a little bit later is definitely a concept I think worth trying here. You can see the dog here trying to bait attacks away and buy a little bit of time. We saw that was also activated onto the main starting structure here. And so now he's going to try to go in here for a surround, and he actually gets it, or almost gets it, excuse me. He's got to slip through here just at the bottom. Unable to get that kill, and maybe not worth it to dive. So now the two brutes are going to be doing damage. No way to mine the primary resource over here for Vanguard.
Yeah, now we have a Lancer coming out for Coffee, which will definitely help out. That's the little unit over there with the big sword on top of its shoulder. Does do a bit of line splash damage, so if some of those brutes do start to clump up a little bit, it does help to get the splash damage onto them. It is also worth to note that these brutes can split into two fiends upon death. You have to activate it to allow it to actually happen. You can't just do it automatically. You'll need an upgrade for that later, but just because that brute is at low health doesn't mean its time is actually over, because Parting can just split that up whenever he wants to get the maximum effectiveness out of it. So even if it does get killed off here, there's still some more that can happen with it.
Yeah, Parting in a really good spot already. I mean, this guy was known for having some of the very best control or best micro in StarCraft 2, able to really cut down opponents right away. And we could see already he's become a bit of a nuisance here in this game as he's been mining from two bases for a long time, and it looks like he's setting up a third base over there at the 9 o'clock position, maybe a little bit south of 9 o'clock. But so coming in here and doing that damage and developing quickly is definitely an excellent opening here for him.
Yeah, and now you see him going for these resource camps. These are something that are also littered around the map that you can get. Little small bonuses here and there. That one is a resource, so it just gives you a little bit of extra Luminate and Therium. Depending on the level of what camp it is. There's also vision camps that you can see across the map, and there's also speed zones as well that'll give any speed buff to units that are inside of the zone there. So after the initial harassment phase is done, where you try to do a little bit of poking and scouting between the two opponents, then that's when you'll usually try to go for the camps afterwards, after there's a little bit of downtime, and there's not much more you can get with the units.
There's a lot of conclaves coming down right now as this third base is going to just start to kick in. It looks like it should be finishing up over on the map. Having the map domination obviously allows you to farm out a lot of creeps, and Parting is definitely taking full advantage of that. We got to see what exactly Coffee can do and how encumbered he's going to be from that rush early on. Being unable to mine from your second expansion, the impacts there ripple through the game. And so he's going to be playing a little bit of catch-up here. You can already see Party has cleared out a couple more creeps and getting the benefits of that. Although at this point in time, it seems like Coffee is comfortable to roam around the map and try to find some opportunities for himself.
Yeah, he's going to be going all the way down to that southern watchtower there, which if you control these watchtowers, it becomes very useful to be able to see where the enemy movements are going and whatnot. So it's good to try and contest those as a player to get as much vision as possible. Parting is going here, is getting the conclaves out, like you said, is now spamming a lot of these gaunts, which are a lot of the, it's the unit that you want to get a lot of as the Infernals early on, because they're just very good. They do a lot of good damage. They can have an ability called Infest, where after you trigger that, it's almost like Stim, where you do move faster and you lose some life. But the benefit of it is that you, when you attack a target, it gets infested, and then when that infested unit dies, it spawns a fiend, which is extremely powerful if you can get a lot of that on top of a lot of the other units, because then it's a huge snowball mechanic.
Yeah, and if you're able to win those fights and snowball it, that's usually how you get a closer. But of course, if you overextend, it can completely and totally backfire. By the way, it looks like Parting's going to be moving up here. Being in control of this ramp just outside of the entrance of the natural means that there's really no way to expand here. And in fact, even worse than a contain is going to be an attack in over here. I don't know if Coffee can hold this.
Yeah, this is a lot of units coming out of Parting. He's even got a Magmadon there jumping forward to stun some of those units, but you got to be careful with that because it does leave them pretty exposed. It does get picked off by the nice Bob surround as well, the overcharge coming in clutch as well to keep those alive. And there's even a turret here with an Exo inside of it to allow some extra defensive DPS with a lot of splash damage onto those units. So nice defense for Coffee so far. Parting, though, still getting this full 3 base saturation up. We should be trying to get some even bigger economy going here as he's getting a 4th base as well. So even though that didn't actually kill Coffee, he's still in a really good position.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a win more move there from Parting. I mean, he already has the advantage. A lot of times when you're ahead, you really do just want to get more ahead instead of trying to close the game out. So Coffee was able to lash back and drive him out. It looks like we're going to see another attack in here as that first Brute does fall. I don't believe it was able to be split into Fiends back there, but you can see the Gaunts. Once they have this ability activated, kiting becomes a real thing.
Yeah, and for now though, there's still not too much there in front of the Gaunt. So you do have to be a little bit careful as Parting because they can die pretty quickly once they have their once they do actually use the Infest ability there. They do kind of lose health quite quickly, and the Exos can do pretty decently against them in the lower numbers if the health is already pretty low. So yeah, Parting is just kind of waiting for the rest of his units, getting another Magmadon there as well, because those are huge to get those big stuns off. Also a Vulcan coming out now for Coffee, but it will get stunned up pretty quickly here. Now the Fiends start to get spawned out of everywhere as the Infest ability finally finds its mark, and that's going to be a lot of sudden Fiends coming out here for Parting to really overwhelm this position.
Had the Vulcan stayed alive, I think it could have stayed further back and then used that cone of damage to maybe drive this out. But it seems like now Parting may be able to topple Coffee here. As you can see, the Fiends multiplying and spilling over onto the structures. I don't see anything remaining here from Vanguard. I think this is likely going to be a GG as Parting able to get that critical mass and close this out. You can really see that snowballing effect there from the Infest with the Fiends.
Yeah, it's an incredibly powerful ability, and there's also, on top of that, there's even a global Infest ability that you can do off of the Shroud Stone, which is something from the previous side. GG's called.
GG there. All right, I don't know if this version of the client actually has the ability to show us the players typing to each other, but you can see he stopped moving there, and so that's going to be that. We're going to be going now into Game 2 here as we continue on. Parting versus Coffee, and this is going to be on the map Jagged Maw.
Yep. Jagged Maw is one of the bigger maps that we have here for Stormgate. It's a very... it's a map that actually will remind you a bit of the old days of maybe Arena or Scrap Station, the overall view of it if you're from StarCraft 2. But there's a lot of cool things on this map, specifically the siege camps in the middle here, which you can see. If you kill those off, it's another type of camp that you can get, which will give you a automated siege turret that kind of just walks across the map.
A little bit like Heroes of the Storm,
yes.
where you destroy a camp and then that births a unit out that you don't control, but it will go in a direction for you. So this is a new mechanic. This map, out of all the maps that we have here for Stormgate, This makes me the most excited because you can see that they're very willing to have a lot of experimental ideas on how a map should be played. I've always felt in all RTS games that maps have just barely been tapped into. Even these really old StarCraft 1 maps where they have like permanent disruption webs in locations or permanent dark swarms or lots of eggs you have to get through. I still feel like there's more opportunities to be had there, and I think we're going to see that play out more and more here. By the way, this was something I wasn't fully aware of. I guess the Fiends are just a little bit faster than the Dogs, so that's a pretty big punish.
Yeah, there's definitely some interaction here that you do have to be careful with as the Vanguard player. It used to be in a couple iterations ago that the Dog was basically as fast as the Fiends, and you would be able to just run away no problem, but nowadays it's much harder to do that. You have to be very careful knowing when that Fiend split could be happening, because, yeah, big punish there on the initial scout, and now these two Fiends are able to come in here, do a little bit of extra poke damage. Might even get a Bob here if there's no overcharge. Even with the overcharge, just barely getting that last hit. So nice little extra damage there by parting.
And it does seem like that's something you would have to go for if you do split the Brute into Fiends, because the Fiends can't stay alive on the map for very long.
Yeah.
It's very important to reiterate that. If you listen to our casts down the road, we're probably going to be mentioning that quite a bit because it's easy to forget. But the Fiends are strong, and you spawn out a lot of them with the Infest ability or just cutting the Brute down yourself to multiply the Fiends. But unless they're on the Shroud, they will eventually deteriorate and die.
Yep, they lose 1 HP per second, about, I believe is what it is. So you want to do something with them once you actually split them. They're not something that you just split and then just sit around with, because it's essentially useless to do that. So, yeah, very nice by parting to be able to do that. We're getting a very fast biokinetics lab here out of Coffee, so that's going to allow him to get some early upgrade. It looks like he's getting a couple Lancers, and then perhaps going straight into Exos, which is how you get the, you need the biokinetics lab to be able to get the Exos. So we'll see what kind of early attack he's going to be trying to go here for, as he already has 2 Lancers and an Exo out right there. So he's using this to get some extra map vision, to get some of those creeps out, as Parting, being the Infernal player, usually has the upper hand in the early game in terms of who's out on the map, essentially, with these early Brutes.
And we can see he's going to clear out the speed camp here. And, you know, while he has control of the map, he absolutely should take full advantage of this. It is a fast expand build here from Parting, although we do see an expansion being built up here as well for Coffee. The distance, by the way, is pretty incredible on this map. Obviously, you're both spawning on the right, but unless you can create openings through the middle of the map to get access to each other, it really is quite a long travel time.
Yeah, it's definitely better to go for that. It looks like actually Parting is going across with his two Fiends. We'll be able to split those off, get that Exo that was just kind of waiting there from the rally, as the rest of Coffee's units were off in the healing zone on the left side after they killed that camp. So a bit out of position there for Coffee, not expecting those units to come out across so suddenly. And that will force a couple of those overcharges out and be a bit of a nuisance here for Coffee.
You could see the difficulty here with ever trying to catch up to these Fiends, but luckily, having the ability for the Bobs to get the buff for the time being means they're not going to be killed off immediately. Anything you could try to surround is going to be worthwhile. Great control there by Coffee, as things are going to quiet down for a little bit here. Production back at home for Parting is looking really healthy. He is starting to accumulate those gaunts. We see 2 have been rallied out there so far. We did in the previous game see a third base. By the way, we have something. Okay, so that is the third base. I was about to say, do we have a third being taken? In this case, we do. So I'm asking myself, as far as development goes, is this going to look a lot like Game 1, where Parting had control of the map, did a little bit of damage early on, but ultimately just controlled. Vanguard never able to take a third, and then with the Fiends just sort of snowballing that damage over there at the natural, Coffee lost. Can Parting do it again?
Yeah, this map I think is a little bit easier for both races to be able to easily expand no matter what side you're on. The other map that we were playing on, it's you have to go down that ramp, and it could be very difficult to contest it a little bit. It's also just a smaller map in general, so this map has a little bit easier time to naturally expand out. The Vanguard will just be doing it a little bit slower regardless, just based off the initial opener that Coffee went. And Infernal really does try to get a lot of expansions up pretty quickly to be able to really power out a lot of units. Because their whole mechanic essentially is that they want to be constantly attacking on the map. They want to be bleeding off units, because if they do lose any units, they do get extra points of Animus, which is what is on that Shroud Stone on the bottom right of the screen that we just missed there. There it is right there. that has extra abilities, global abilities onto it, that if you get enough Animus, you will be able to use them to great effect. And so any unit that dies near one of your units will give a point to that mechanic. So that's a very useful thing. So you want to always be trying to attack as much as possible as Infernals.
Yeah, it's a real incentive to stay active on the map and try to get kills. So this is what we were talking about. The siege camp, once you kill off those animals that are there defending it, you take their catapult. That's the animal's catapult that they were protecting. Now, the catapult you can't control. There is a way, the last time I played, that you can right-click on it and surround it, so you can kind of trap it. But otherwise, it will go on a path as quick as it can. In this case, there's an opening here in the middle towards the opponent's base. And so you could think of this like a siege tank or even like a catapult from Warcraft 2 if you're as old as me. That will stay out in the distance, and it'll attack either units or structures. But because of its great distance, it forces the opponent to either dive on it or take a fight where they can win, because otherwise your defenses are going to deteriorate over time.
Yeah, and Party is going in here now with this turret, or the cannon behind him, trying to get onto that turret. And that turret actually did an incredible amount of damage onto the Gaunt's. We saw it does splash damage onto them, so it was very well defended there for Coffee. But the Magmadon and some of the Fiends are now getting off onto the Bobs and some of the other units on the top right side as well. And so it's kind of hard to tell exactly which player will be coming out on top, but the Catapult is still alive and well here. And with these extra Fiends now starting to spawn out due to that infest ability, the snowballing happens yet again. And now Coffee is in shambles to be able to even defend his natural here.
Yeah, this is pretty brutal. The Catapult had some insane shots, not just on the structures, but the units as well. And I mean, I don't know if there's any way for Coffee to recover. It just seems like he's going to collapse under the pressure that is now being mounted over here from this push coming out from Parting. I think we're probably going to see GG here. There's just no way to recover. That's going to be it for Game 2. And that will bring us then into Game 3, hoping here that we can possibly have a win here from from Coffee here, as Parting is just looking way too strong. We're going to be going into Game 3 right now. And here we are.
Yeah, it's going to be Secluded Grove, excuse me, as the third map here, which is the newest map, actually, of the Stormgate playtest we have introduced in the latest phase here. So it's a pretty overall decent map that I think a lot of people are overall happy with. There's some interesting characteristics with it. Specifically, there's a huge double base in the middle here, which we'll get a shot of just there as we're going past. But it's very good to be able to control that in the mid game if we do get it. But yeah, I mean, Coffee so far has been getting a bit outclassed, I would say, by Parting. Parting is, I think, considered to be the, if not one of the best Stormgate players that we have right now. He's been doing a lot of grinding on it, and he's been extremely good. Basically, you know, only the top players that can possibly compete against him, basically.
It's important to remember, with Parting, he was the world champion in the very early days of StarCraft 2, and he remained competitive and viable all the way through GSL, only to stop during his military service, which he's now finished with, just about a month out of being off the military. So now he's back, able to be a pro gamer, able to compete. But you can see why Parting is a real threat here. There's very few pros that can just pick up a game that's brand new like Stormgate and seemingly master it and come out with very, very good ideas that are just very difficult to beat and compete with. And so in this game, we once more have a fast expand build here. And this time it is going to be Parting once more, just trying to, you know... Oh, sorry, this is actually Infernal on both sides.
Yeah, it looks like Coffee actually switched
for a second, I'm
Infernals.
like, is he making a base
Did he
outside?
mind control?
Yeah, like, what is going on here? So Coffee switches factions here. He will be Infernal. So this will be a mirror matchup here, Infernal versus Infernal. Sorry, guys, I didn't catch that on the loading screen. Okay, well, let's see what Coffee can do. We've got a different matchup with the same players. How is this going to pan out?
Yeah, I think Infernal of this in this phase is definitely an interesting one. There's a lot of aggression. There's a lot of brutes. There's a lot of fiends getting split up, and it's a total clown fiesta sometimes with some of these some of the fights that come out. So it can be enjoyable to watch. So far, there's just a couple brute interactions here in the middle of the map trying to get on top of all of these. As you can see, those fiend splits coming out at the last second to be able to maximize the efficiency of how much damage can come out here and to save the units at the last possible second.
So we're going to see the push move on here. And in this case, it's going to be a little bit of a back away here, and instead going for the vision camp over here, just up here at the just outside of the top right.
Yeah, these are always good to control because it gives so much vision coming directly out of the opponent's base. So if you are controlling that as the other player, you get a really good scout off onto what exactly they're doing. Are they trying to go take a fast third over on the top side there? Are they leaving their base at all? It's just a very powerful tower to actually control. You can, after it does get taken by a player, you can actually kill it as the other player as well. So if you do amass enough units, you can go over and actually destroy the tower so that way they can't see anything from it anymore. So it's not like you get it and then it's just there forever. But it is a very good thing to contest, as you always want to try to go for that.
Another thing to watch for is the middle of the map here. It is a very resource-heavy location. And so if we get into a deep game, a lot of times it's whoever can control that middle base. There are trees you have to cut through to get to it, but if you're able to take that, a lot of times you'll just dominate through mid-game and crush. Yeah,
and we're going to see that the Ethereum is starting to get extra mined out here as well. We're going to be trying to go for as much eco as possible. And, yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends in this Infernal how the actual big fight goes. So it does, since it is a mirror matchup, it's, each player has the same type of unit. So it's, it's very mirrored in that way. So it's hard to kind of find an avenue here and there because the other player will just be able to initially punish you because they will, if you go for a faster expansion, then they go for more units, then they can just easily overwhelm you and then you just don't have anything because you have the exact same units.
One thing I've noticed too is that, brutes aren't that fast. And fiends, obviously, they dissipate with strength the further out, the longer they're on the map, basically. So it would seem like it would. There's not a lot of incentive to try to attack right away in this mirror matchup, at least in this iteration of the game. So instead, we're going to see a lot more clearing of the creeps, trying to get kills, trying to get animus, obviously trying to get the buffs that you get from wiping these camps out.
Yeah, there are a couple like really early game cheeses that you can go for if you want. Like I was fiddling with a 3-volt rush of just spamming out brutes and just going across the map. And then you just kind of overwhelm them because a lot of players are greedy and want to go for fast expansion. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't want to deal with the macro anymore. I just want to get some easy wins. And I kind of did that a little bit. I was kind of over the, trying to play macro.
Yeah, trying to play correctly.
Yeah, I was
trying to play the game the right way.
Let me see if I can actually, cheese a couple games out here, and it was pretty good for a bit. So I was enjoying that. But
it is funny.
I generally try to play macro. I'm not a total scumbag.
I'm watching these like little imps squeeze in between the buildings. It's going to be interesting as the game pans out, and we really get wall-ins and SimCities down. What fits through what and what doesn't.
I'm sure there's going to be plenty of scenarios where there's people, even pros, that are like, "Oh, this is a wall, 100%," and then they just die.
Like a fiend goes through, but a brute doesn't, or something like that. But even in the early game right now, we see a couple of ideas at play here. Like this is a kind of a wall that Coffee has at his main, protecting his first primary resource location. And just sort of a bit of a turtled position over here at the third for partying.
Yeah, I do like that positioning, actually, because he does have the turret there, and the Shroud Stone to be able to deal a lot of damage. But then there's also the Barrows, which are allowed to... they spawn those little... what are they called? The little guys?
Fellhogs?
Fellhogs, there you go. Spawns those guys out, which are also a defensive mechanic for the Infernals as well. So your actual supply structure does defend against other things as well. You can't control those Fellhogs, but they will just attack things that are nearby. So it's a nice little thing to put on in front of other units or in front of other buildings to kind of block and do a little extra defensive damage.
We've got partying coming around here, and he's going to basically interrupt the Theorem mining. This is, I think, a really good attack point to basically try to punish. You can very easily escape if need be. He does, it looks like, overextend here with the Magmadon. The Magmadon is actually going to dive in. And it looks like immediately getting surrounded and killed off here. This does feel like maybe a bit of an overextension here, but he is going to see about... Oh, hold on. We see immediately all those brutes sacked and then spawn into fiends here. I was going to say with Infest, maybe there was a world where if you didn't do that, that would work out better.
But then it starts to swing here. This is the problem with Infernal versus Infernals. Once the big Fiend switch happens, you can actually double Infest onto the other Fiends as well, and then it snowballs immediately the other direction. And so it's very swingy in these fights, and now you can see there's absolutely nothing here to defend against this. All the Fiends completely overwhelming what initially looked like was going to be a Coffee wipe of the army. This is the crazy thing. This is why I was saying it's a total clown fiesta with Infernal vs. Infernal.
It's like watching a kid in a science experiment where he doesn't know what the baking soda does, and then just the volcano spills over. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, so then it causes this chain reaction, and there it is, GG. Well, you didn't see it, but I did. GG there from, Parting just showing pure domination, really impressive stuff. That's crazy seeing that interaction there at the end, Infernal versus Infernal, when you have, that Fiend chain reaction just span out, and suddenly what looked like it might have been a fight winning there for Coffee was actually a victory for Party.
Yeah, I've done that a lot of times as well in the games that I've been playing, where it's just the Fiend fights just go back and forth, and where you can't tell what's happening sometimes, and it's just like total chaos.
Well, excellent cast here, Gemini. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you thought about those games, and be ready for a lot more Stormgate content in the future here on this channel. Have a good one.